Hi, everybody. My name is Will McIntee. Welcome to my session as part of the Dynamics Consultants Customer Day. I'm going to be talking to you guys today for like 15 to 20 minutes about being a transformer. How you can digitally transform your business in this new wonderful age in which we live. So, we're going to be covering three key points today. Number one, we're going to be talking about digital transformation and disruption in the marketplace. We're going to be looking at ways to maybe not reinvent business productivity, but look at productivity in maybe a slightly different way. And then we're going to be talking about the impact of dynamics. Obviously, most of you on today's call are familiar with NAV, but talking about how Business Central exists with the wider Microsoft ecosystem and workloads that, well, if you're not aware of today, that hopefully today will bring you great awareness of and get you really excited about it. So just a little bit about myself. My name is Will McIntee. I head up a business in the UK called QBS Group. Our job at QBS is looking after organizations like the beloved Dynamics consultants. So we work with the majority of business applications partners here in the UK and Europe. For my sins, I'm former Microsoftie. I worked at Microsoft for about 7 years, where I ran the nav channel here in the UK. Left there to start QBS in 2013. All told, I've probably got 25 plus years experience of working in the ERP and CRM space as an implementer. Started off life as a techie, SQL Server 6.0. Database consultant, and kind of evolved from there. If you ever want to not talk about dynamics, all you need to do is talk about rugby, Welsh rugby in particular, my dogs, and my fabulous partners like Dynamics consultants. So what I wanted to talk about specifically today was the scale and pace of change that we're experiencing in the world. Let's start looking how business models are getting disruptive, and think about how the scale and pace of innovation and change is accelerating transformation. We're very much living today in what people are describing as the fourth industrial revolution, and it's characterized by typically an unprecedented investment and innovation in technology, and which is kind of blurring the digital, physical, and, well, in some respects, biological domains. For instance, if we look at based on current computing capacity, you'd only need to spend about $1,000 to do DNA sequencing. Wind the clock back 15 to 20 years ago, you'd be spending a couple of $1 billion to do on compute power to do DNA sequencing. And that's just an example of how compute power and the cloud in particular is driving change and accelerating the pace of change in which we exist today. So the other thing to also think about the pace of change is the price drop in other technologies. So if you look at, for example, the typical cost of a drone, some years back versus what it is today, you're looking at £50 versus today versus 10 plus years ago, £75,000. It's kind of mind blowing. If you think about say, for example, sensors, if you look at the availability and pervasiveness of sensor technology, it's kind of like a massive breakthrough that we're experiencing. The reality is that technology is becoming more and more affordable, and therefore become more and more accessible to everybody on the planet. So it's what I would really describe as democratization of IT and technology. And what this means from a business to business perspective is that we've never lived in a more disruptive era when it comes to changing existing working practices. The world's largest taxi firm doesn't have any cars. The world's largest accommodation website doesn't own any properties. The largest retailers do not pay business rates for their shops. We've seen the impact today in the sad news very recently around the Arcadia Group shops, struggling to compete against online retailers because of the different cost base that they have to operate from. And if we look at the world's fastest growing food outlet, they don't own any restaurants. So, we are living in a world that is experiencing digital disruption at an accelerated rate day after day after day. And typically you can have one of two reactions about this. You can either be the chap on the left or the chap on the right. You can either welcome these changes and embrace these changes, or you can be petrified of these. And quite frankly, guys, I spend my time speaking with organizations that work in this space. Usually it's a combination of the two. It's exciting and terrifying at the same time. But regardless of what you're feeling, the train has left the station. The world has evolved completely and utterly in the last 2, 3, 5 years, with cloud, if you like, as being one of the driving forces behind that. And so if we think, if we drill into what's going on in the market today, just if we were having this conversation 3, 4, 5 years ago, I'd probably be trying to describe what cloud was to everybody in this room. Now, that doesn't happen. When we see requests for information, invitations to tender documents released from prospective customers today, they are all cloud first, because most organizations get and understand the opportunity that cloud presents their organization to evolve and cope with the ever-changing world around them. The other interesting thing that we're seeing today is we're seeing more and more line of business or departmental buying decisions get made, especially around CRM and ERP. So we're seeing operational managers, we're seeing warehouse managers, we're seeing sales and marketing directors actually making IT decisions or being heavily involved in IT decisions, IT investment decisions, where historically they may not necessarily have been before. We're also seeing that we're all trying to do more with less in some respects. We're trying to drive as much productivity from the people within our business without, quite frankly, burning them out. A Gartner study shows that about 40% of an information worker's time is spent flipping between different systems. And it's quite an alarming stat. $450 billion that costs $450 billion of lost productivity every single year. And then the other thing is that organizations are beginning to realize that, as from a competitive differentiation perspective, investing in your own IT, investing in your own digital strategy is absolutely key. So what do we think when we were confronted by all of these challenges? Quite frankly, it's a combination of the yay, ooh, but also gulp. The world's changing very quickly. We have limited budgets. What do we do? Well, the answer is we do the very British thing of keep calm and carry on, right? Because what we're talking about here is an evolution. And by the way, Mr. Tom Jenkins, that is not me, second from the left. I have evolved to Homosapien status. Thank you very much. It's all about evolution, right? It's all about having a plan, understanding the market in which you operate, and having a strategy and then a plan to execute, and even become the digital disruptor within your own workplace. And it's really fascinating because all businesses need to evolve. And I look at my former employer, Microsoft. The original vision of Microsoft was to have a PC on every desk and in every home. Obviously, they've kind of evolved from that quite a lot, quite some way over the years. And so now the mission for Microsoft is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. So we all have to evolve. We all should recognize that evolution isn't a bad thing. I mean, the way I see it, one of the central tenets to your own evolution is the acceptance that you are now a software company. There is no getting away from it that at the heart of every business today sits some software that is making an impact on your business that can either that can help you grow productively and profitably based upon your software investment decisions. And when we think about digital transformation, there's four key pillars that I really think it's very important for us to get our heads around, to think about how we can impact these with our software investment decisions. Um, and this is all around um, how we handle and how we perceive change within our businesses. And typically, I like to think of ways in which how we engage our customers, how we optimize our internal operations, how we transform our products or services that we deliver, but also how we ensure that our employees have the right tools to drive the relevant change. And it's fascinating because um, if you think about how we really move on, the each one of these pillars should support the other pillar. So the way that we engage with our customers should inform how we perform our back office functions. The way we perform our back office functions should hopefully create a digital feedback loop in terms of how we transform the products and transform the services. And all of this should actually drive the productivity for our employees. It's the job of Microsoft in some respects to provide the platform, to provide the tools for you and Dynamics consultants to go and build a future where you can digitally transform and enhance your business. And if we think about the Microsoft strategy, it is really, really interesting because you've got on one hand you've got Microsoft Azure, which I guess most of you are familiar with, the Microsoft infrastructure in the cloud. You've also got Microsoft 365, which is Office 365 and Windows as a service. But the big bet Microsoft is making is around Microsoft Dynamics 365 and business applications like Power Platform. So that's Power Apps, Power BI, and Power Automate. Once you get your head around the abilities and the workloads that are available to Microsoft, you begin to realize how central the Microsoft Business Applications investment strategy is to the whole strategy of Microsoft. And it's really interesting. There's a guy called Satya Nadella, who's CEO of Microsoft today. One of his first jobs in Microsoft was creating the first Dynamics CRM product. He's the guy that launched Dynamics CRM 1.2 back in, I think it was 2002, 2003. So it's interesting. Business applications are becoming more and more part of the heartbeat of Microsoft all up, which is great news for those that have already begun that investment journey with the dynamic solution. So if we move on and we think about typically all of you or most of you on today's call have an ERP system, and it's probably NAV or BC. But then you also think about, well, where does our CRM solution live? Now, a number of you probably use some of the CRM functionality today within NAV or Business Central, but obviously there's additional workloads that are available today from Microsoft. And I'm going to go on to an eye chart in a moment that I kind of think is really fascinating because, when I first started selling business applications, implementing business applications, you basically implemented some ledgers, maybe some warehousing, and then attached a pipeline management tool that became known as CRM on the side. now those lines are really, really blurred. And it's key to kind of decide, which workload you can draw, which workload you should be drawing upon to drive some of the digital transformation opportunities that you see within your business today. And if we look at this big old eye chart, this kind of brings home to me in some respects, the continued Microsoft investment in business applications. And it's fascinating. I mean, a number of customers of NAV today always, question, well, what's the future for Business Central? Well, the future for Business Central, quite frankly, is at the heart of the Microsoft business application strategy. So if we look at the most recent releases of Business Central, it's creating a tighter integration to things like the Dataverse, what was known as a common data service, creating point connectors and APIs to allow integration with a whole stack of Microsoft Dynamics 365 solutions. And where we're seeing lots of customers start to really look at reasons to migrate from your on-premise NAV solution today to your Business Central SaaS solution tomorrow, is actually for that integration opportunity, being able to work with, create point solutions with Power Apps, for example, and using Power Apps to integrate with D365 Business Central SaaS. You may have even made investments in D365 sales or D365 customer service. Again, you probably want to think about integration opportunities and how you leverage the years and years of investment that you've made in NAV. Well, the answer is you start with your migration project onto D365 Business Central SaaS. And for me, and I've got a couple of eye charts here, and I do apologize for that. What I really love to see is these different planograms per customer, per deployment, in terms of how you're leveraging what your Dynamics investments, how you're leveraging say Office 365, and then other stuff, other IP layered on top of those two solutions to make your business make sense. And so obviously all these slides will be available to you after this. But here's something for you to go away and work on. How think about things like, how does Outlook integration impact my finance department? Can we use Outlook, calendars and tasks to drive credit control behavior, for example? It's it's simple, quick wins that you can start plotting and thinking about today. And the great thing about the Microsoft story today is is how much money they're spending on it. The investments Microsoft are making in the common data service, what today is known as Dataverse, is now far, far, far in excess of what I saw when I was at when I was at Microsoft. So it's a good place to be. And a number of times I get asked, what where does Dynamics fit within my solution, within my business? And I like to look at it in terms of those four pillars of empowering employees, engaging customers, optimizing operations, and transform products, if you like, as being the top floor of the house. And then in the basement supporting it, you can choose from the different Microsoft workloads, whether that's Modern Workplace, which is Microsoft 365, Office 365, Windows, your business applications, which is Dynamics 365 plus Power Platform, applications and infrastructure, which is typically Azure, and the investments Microsoft are making around data and AI. So the opportunity after today is to go and have a think. Go and have a think about, can you be a transformer within your own business? So that's all today's about, is give you some ideas, give you some thoughts, hopefully maybe even a tiny bit of inspiration to think about the investments, the journey that you've been on so far with your Dynamics products today, but then think about where you can go in the future. And working with the guys at Dynamics Consultants would be a great place to start. So I just wanted to say thank you very much. I hope you found this useful. I hope you found this informative. Well, I hope on the next customer day I can see you all there in person. So thank you very much.